What once was dead is live again in Warhammer Online Return of Reckoning. This is really something that came out of left field and delighted me to no end. What's going on, Workforce? Today we're asking the question, is Warhammer Online worth it in 2020? And to answer that right away, a simple yes. Thanks for coming by. I wish you all the best. Have a great week. But if you want to find out more as to why I think this way and what I think modern MMOs can actually learn from Warhammer Online, stick around. Now, yesterday I covered how to register and actually install this game in a simple video. I'll link to it in the description below if you have not seen that, and this video entices you to try it out. Honestly, that is my petition, I think, and beg you to go and try this game out. If you've never played it, or even if you dabbled in it back in the day, there is something truly magical about this build, being fan-based, and more. But I do want to dive into my history, the lack of controller support, the lack of more than two factions, being this game was kind of a victim of the WoW model and EA in a way, the power of RVR, and obviously the fact that this is run by the fans, seems to be blessed by the devs. And I do want to talk about what Final Fantasy XIV and maybe even other MMOs can learn. I believe there's actually a lot to unpack with Warhammer Online, so let's go ahead and dive in. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about my history. I fell victim to the same advice we give Final Fantasy players. Just get to cap. I would go and play a character to like maybe rank 30 and start over again and over again. Warhammer Online became this great game that I would visit in between Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. I'd come and play some PvP, some RVR, and would really just love the experience that I was having. And then I would not really want to pay the sub, so then I would kind of just take a break. So I was not an avid Warhammer Online fan. In fact, I'm very new to the Warhammer universe, so there wasn't a lot of nostalgia that pulled me in. What's interesting about all this is that Chris, being an avid Warhammer, like the tabletop game player, you know, we haven't really got to sit down and talk much about Warhammer itself, so maybe we will, and if we do, hopefully you'll enjoy that video when we sit down and take that time. But I continue to return to Warhammer Online, and when they announced that it was shutting down, I did go back for a little bit of time to say farewell to this game. And that was that. Now, after playing this game for a little bit, I went and watched Death of a Game by Nerdslayer. He is a fantastic creator. If you haven't seen him, I'll try to include a link in the description for you below as well. And his video on it really hit home a lot of points and really opened my eyes to this game itself and why it struggled and what ultimately it ended up lacking. For me, obviously the lack of controller support is key. Final Fantasy XIV 1.0, for all that it was, had controller support, and that was just a more comfortable thing and a comfortable way to play. If you've been subscribed to this channel, that should not come as a shock to you. If you're new and for some reason watching this video, yeah, check out our other content. I like playing games with controllers, especially MMORPGs, and Final Fantasy XIV is the piece de resistance. It is the gold standard when it comes to these type of games. So the lack of controller support was key for me. However, there is a strength that this game brings, and not only that is it's fun. We've actually found out that many people within this community have already checked out this game. So next time, guys, if you're playing this great game or any game, and let us know, because I'd love to be able to at least make sure I'm aware of it. But jumping into RVR has been an incredible experience. We were playing some more just yesterday with a big group of people, and it is something that I think was really lacking when I first played Warhammer Online, was that sense of community. I always kind of felt alone. I could never seem to gather people in to come and check out this game with me because there was always the fear that it was going to fail. And in retrospect, they weren't wrong. It did fail. It did go away. And I don't think it was for lack of the devs trying. I think it's just when you look back at 2008 to 2013, it's a whole interesting world, and this ends up being kind of a time capsule. So where people are drawn into WoW Classic and how that game played, here we are kind of on the other end of it. Like, here's a more modern version of a classic game that brings a lot to the table, and honestly, in ways, some of the things when you've heard me say, I wish Final Fantasy XIV did X, that's actually drawing from an experience that I had in Warhammer Online. No joke. It's like Warhammer Online, for its time, brought in such unique features. Public quests. This is back in 1.0. There was no fates in 1.0. Public quests were a unique and interesting way of telling stories about the world as you played through these chapters. The whole scenario system in which that you can kind of queue up for these different campaigns versus the two different RVR, Realm versus Realm, that was really cool and unique too, and it allowed you that pretty much just play the game the way you wanted to play it. But at the end, there's still this weird dichotomy between PvE and PvP. This is meant to be an ongoing forever war, and that's where the two sides things comes in again, being a nail in the coffin, something that holds it back, because one side would always become more powerful. When you look at Final Fantasy XI, when you look at the upcoming New World, they have a 3-faction tier system with kind of a 4th faction serving as the computer to be able to kind of try to keep things in balance. So if one faction got too strong, you would have the ability to have the other two join up together to kind of put them back in check. And I always appreciated that system, and I would love to have something like that bring it into the world of Final Fantasy XIV. It's kind of funny because when I talk about the connection with WoW, I never really have a big connection to the PvE element of this game. I've leveled up constantly and ranked up all through the RVR, and I would obviously do the kind of the PvE and the public quests between matches, but it was something that I just really enjoyed. Now, coming into this game now, hands down, the controller support would be amazing, but obviously this is not what Warhammer Online is going to be. So, how am I doing it? Well, how am I adjusting to this lack of controller support? Well, it's taken me a lot of time, and I've put a lot of work into my key bindings, trying to find something that is a little bit comfortable, and so far, I'm making progress. And somebody was suggesting the other day to go get like a kind of a keybound mouse, something that where I have all these buttons on my mouse. And I was like, I'm not going to make that kind of level of investment in Warhammer Online. I think you should totally go play it. You should experience it for yourself. And it could be something that you can easily just come and play and pick up and have some fun with. And then you can put down and go away, because there's really no lack of, commitment that you have to make. There's no subscription fee that you have to pay. It's really just about having fun with your friends and experiencing this game. And it makes me wonder, would this be resurrected? Could this be resurrected? Could they sit here and say, okay, knowing what we know, knowing about the model, is Warhammer Online, is there a future for this franchise? And I have no idea. If they did one, I would be there. I would have to check it out. When coming in, stepping into this game, having really no major connection and knowledge of Warhammer as a franchise itself, just the tabletop, the stories, the lore, I definitely feel like I'm at a disadvantage. People are like, oh, can you play the Skaven? I'm like, who are the Skaven? Oh, they're a race. Well, it turns out, like, when you look at the tabletop, there's multiple factions. They all have reasons to hating each other. And that's kind of what it would have been really cool to see them do. And that's why I'm actually excited for the future when we bring up the concept of New World with its PvE and PvP element, trying to fight for control of land. That is the sandbox dynamic content that's changing each and every day so that devs can't make content fast enough. One of the things that was really clear with Warhammer Online is that there was just not enough content being delivered fast enough, and so everything obviously relied on the RVR and that kind of element, which is great, but you still need, even if you're in a sandbox, feed it with content from time to time. Be generous somewhat in that regards, deliver new features, deliver new things to chase as a part of that, but the gameplay comes into that struggle between these factions. And so at the end of the day, like, this has been an incredible experience for me. Like, it's so fun stepping back into this world. It's also fun just trying to learn it and understand it in a different way. Coming at it from a Final Fantasy XIV approach of just get to cap with one character and just see what there is all to see about this game, to experience all there is to experience, and because it's fun and it's really enjoyable, and it speaks to what pulled me away and puts me into Destiny 2, and as you look at playing different games, it is interesting. And so it still begs that question, like I said earlier, asking, like, would they ever resurrect it? Could EA and Mythic and BioWare, essentially, because that was a whole nightmare of a organizational structure as EA continued to really kind of mess with things, really. Honestly, that's just how it ended up being. So that's just where I wonder, if it had a different model, if it had a different kind of life, would we see this having succeeded in a modern setting like today versus, 12 years ago. So beyond that, though, I think Final Fantasy XIV itself and modern MMOs can really kind of look at this both as an experiment, but also as a way of saying, how can you be different? I think that sandbox, that PvE and PvP sandbox that they have somewhat built here, is a nice testament to it. And with Final Fantasy XIV and its very narrative approach, and it's kind of dabbling within PvP, ultimately it would be interesting to see if they decided to bring the Grand Companies up into some form of provenance. I don't know how that would ever work lore-wise with with the first, but as far as the Grand Companies go, it would be so fascinating to see if they ever decided to make that where at some point in the narrative future, there was a reason why you wanted to represent the adders or the flames or the maelstrom again in that regards to resist and to claim and to own territory. I don't know. I think that wouldn't work within 14 specifically as it exists today. But as we look towards the future, I think the future for the MMORPG as a genre is a blending of the theme park that is Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft, and the sandbox that is the RVR PvP, but also the sandbox that is kind of that PvE control for land and the economy of a game itself. That would be Final Fantasy XI, and a little bit of, Warhammer Online. And what will be interesting to see is how New World ultimately plays out together with that. Anyway, guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know in the comments below. If you get any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'm enjoying this game so much that I'm looking to try to put some guides together, because there's so much that I don't understand, and there's so much that I've had just questions about, and I'm learning and getting refamiliarized myself. Having played this game, it still feels like I'm, kind of stepping into this world that feels vaguely familiar and at the same time overwhelmingly complex, and that's really enjoyable. So like I said, let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. If you want to join us in playing this game, be sure to hit us up on Discord. We're playing this pretty much every night right now. It's going to obviously vary depending on schedules, but just hit us up. We'd love to talk to you about it. And then if you are new here, hit that subscribe button. If you want to, ring that bell, hit that like button. It helps us out with the algorithm, and I'll leave that choice and that power up to you. Anyhow, for Work to Game, my name's Brian. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.